Hey guys, long time no see. Pretty much a year since my last video because today I'm here to talk about my 2023 reading recap and 2024 goals and TBR. So I thought it'd be fun to react to my last video, which was my 23 books I want to read in 2023 and see if I actually read those books. Okay, it feels kind of weird reacting to my last video, but let's just do it. It looks like I started out with thriller, which is basically like my comfort genre. It's the genre I'm most drawn to because thrillers usually have, it's like a page turner and keeps you hooked. So yeah, thriller is definitely my comfort genre. So let's see what were the books on my TBR last year. The first thriller that I have here is The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. I didn't read that book. Oh, we're off to a great start. Okay. The next book I have here is a classic, and that is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I haven't read that one either. So we're two for two right now. Gone Girl is really high up there. I think it's because I have such high expectations for this book that I'm a bit intimidated to read it. Like I want to read it and also then watch the movie. So I just gotta find the right time to actually do that. The next one is one I really want to get to soon because I've only heard amazing things about it. Everyone's rating it 5 stars, and that is Confessions by Kane Minato. I did read Confessions. Where is it? I have it right here. My expectations for this one was kind of high. There were some things that I didn't really love about it. The biggest thing that I didn't love about this book is it felt like we were getting the same story over and over and over again, just from different perspectives. And it went kind of crazy towards the end and really not realistic, but it was a good time. It was fun. A lot of people love this book and it has high praise. So if the synopsis at all interests you, I would definitely recommend you give it a try. And I ended up giving this one a 3.5. Next book I have here is one that was recommended by Gabby Reads. It was in a bunch of her videos, a bunch of her favorites for the year.
Right, coming in at number 2, I feel like if
I
you've
think
been
I know which
following
one
my
this
channel
is.
at all this year, then these top 2 are probably not going to be very surprising. But coming in at number 2 is going to be Notes on an Execution.
I did not read Notes on Execution, so that how many are you at right now? Three books I didn't read for my TBR last year. The next one also receives really high praise from booktubers, and that is Lane Fargo's They Never Learn. I did read Lane Fargo's They Never Learn, and this was actually, I think this was the quickest read I had last year. I'm a pretty slow reader, and I read this in like 5 days or something. I tend to pick up books just to like read before bed or, on the weekend, have longer reading sessions of like an hour at a time, maybe at most. But this one I was so gripped by. I ended up giving this one a 4.5, and I just thought it was so entertaining and I wanted to see where it was going to go. And the twist in this one had my jaw on the ground. So I really enjoyed that. If you like thrillers and you haven't read this one, this is on a lot of people's like most loved thriller list, and now I see why. Now, I've heard mixed reviews on this next book, and it is very mixed. Either people love it or really don't like it, and that is Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. This one's actually funny. So I didn't read this one in 2023. This was my first read of 2024. I actually really liked Rock, Paper, Scissors. I think I ended up giving it a 4.5. And it is Ruth Ware's Turn of the Key, and this cover is very shiny. It is very shiny. I can't believe I still haven't read this book, so this is another one I have not read. But I'm highly anticipating it, and I think I have plans to read this one in the winter, so I should be picking it up soon. I can't believe I haven't read this one still. It's wild. I've owned it for quite a while now. And the last thriller on my physical TBR this year is Riley Sager's Lock Every Door. I thought there was hope that I would have read the last one, but no, I haven't read Lock Every Door yet either, and I've also had this one for quite a long time, so gotta get to it. Next up, we have my mystery novels. I'm so excited to get into mysteries, and that is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I've read this one. Was this like one of my earliest reads? I think after Confessions, I read The Thursday Murder Club, or the other way around. This one I ended up giving 4 stars. It was really fun. following these quirky characters in their retirement village. The only thing that I didn't love about it and didn't resonate with me so much is that it's based in London, I believe. Some of the slang and some of the jokes kind of flew over my head, but it was really fun following these characters. They're really fun to read about, and the journal entries I quite liked. There's two point of views. Sometimes if there's multiple point of views, you kind of like want to read just in one of them because one of them is more intriguing, but I actually quite enjoyed both of them.
The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is
Yes! Another win. I did read The Inheritance Games and I quite enjoyed it. I believe the first book I rated 5 stars and the other two just four stars, I believe. They were just so fun to read, so easy to read, and I wish there were more puzzles. I feel like the way that they described the puzzles and like the game aspect in this book could have been done better in some of the parts. I think it was in the second book, but I think that was my only thing that I didn't love. And I also there's a bit of a love triangle, and I don't love the outcome of it. I read them all back to back, and they were so fun. Yay, another win!
this is another young adult mystery series, also a trilogy, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder.
I have not read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It is on my TBR this year. All the books that I didn't read in this video are actually on my 2024 TBR, by the way, because I do want to get through my physical TBR.
The next genre I have is short stories, beginning with Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi.
I haven't read it.
I have read the first novel.
I did, yeah.
And the other 2 short stories I've already
I
covered in
haven't.
my last haul, and those 2 are Out There by Kate Folk and How High
Still
We
haven't
Go in the
read them.
Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu.
I guess last year wasn't really a short stories year for me because I didn't read any of those 3. And you would think if I wanted to like increase how many books I read last year, I would have just read these short stories, but never got around to them for some reason. But I am still really interested in them, so.
The next genre is horror, and I have 2
Oh,
books here
okay.
that are horror. I've never tested out the genre, so hopefully I like them. The first one is Daphne by Josh Mallerman.
This one was tough to get through. I gave this one a 3.5 star, and I actually wrote a review about it on Goodreads, so it took me a really long time to get through it. I remember it was very difficult to keep reading it. I think a big reason why I struggled to get through this one is because, like I told you earlier, I like to read before bed, and I'm not trying to read a horror book right before bed. And the other aspect to this that I didn't love, like maybe it just wasn't for me, is because it deals a lot with anxiety. And basically the horror in this book is the idea of anxiety. So I thought that would be, relatable to me, and that's why I would enjoy it. But it actually kind of turned me off from it a little bit. And the actual, like, physical horror of this character, Daphne, kind of only makes her real appearance in, like, the second half of the book, or even maybe, like, the last third. I do remember really enjoying the ending. I thought the ending was really good, and it really picked up towards the very end. But I kind of wish we had that same tone throughout, and unfortunately it didn't. So 3.5 stars.
And the other horror novel that I have here is We Spread by Ian Reid.
Darn.
I feel like this will...
I haven't read that book either, so We Spread. I've heard such great things about Ian Reid as an author, and this is the only novel that I own of his, and I am really wanting to get to it. I just didn't last year, unfortunately.
Manga. I'm sure it'll be no surprise that I picked up Spy Family as my introduction
We love
to
Spy
manga.
Family. I did read Spy Family. I actually read volume 1. This is The Spy Twilight. This is Anya. Anya is so cute. I love her. She is the daughter. She's a telepath. She can read people's minds. And then this is volume 3, and this has the wife Yor, and she's an assassin, actually. But they don't know that about each other. I'm sure you guys have heard so much about this series. I read the first 3 volumes, and I love them. I love them just as much as the anime, because I am watching the anime as well. And for all of these volumes, I rated them 5 stars. So you'll see later when I'm talking about my average rating, I rated each of those volumes 5 stars, so that's why my average rating is probably really high.
The next book is a fantasy middle grade, and that is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston.
I haven't read this yet, and I don't know why, because I actually read a little bit of fantasy, and even going into 2024, I want to read more fantasy. So the fact that I haven't read this yet, and this would be like the perfect introduction to fantasy because it is a middle grade and be pretty easy to pick up. And I haven't yet. I can't believe it. But no, I haven't read Amari and the Night Brothers still.
And the last genre and book that I have here is a memoir, and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy.
This is a book I haven't read yet. I didn't read any memoirs last year, so I should really get to this. And hopefully I do in 2024. So that was fun to watch back. Maybe we should do a quick tally. So out of the 15 novels I read last year, this is the percentage that were in my TBR for the year. So I do have a lot of books I still have to get to. But let's talk about the other books that I did get into. These are books that were not on my physical TBR last year, but I did end up reading. Let's start with the first one. So the first book that I read last year that wasn't on my physical TBR was Legends and Lattes. This was a 5-star for me. I absolutely loved how cozy this was, and this was actually a great introduction to fantasy for me. I think cozy fantasy is something that I'm going to be gravitated towards more. You'll see with the other books that I picked up this year and books that I have planned to read in 2024. I think cozy fantasy is something that I do really like. I did get Bookshops and Bone Dust, and also spoiler alert, I don't know if you could see that. I have been reading it and loving this one as well. If you want to see my reviews, I have posted some on Goodreads, but this was an easy 5-star for me. It kind of felt like I was playing one of my cozy games, but reading it instead. I love just like the atmosphere and building the coffee shop. I just love this book so much. So if you are interested in fantasy but are a bit intimidated by something like high fantasy, I would recommend cozy fantasy as like an easy in to the genre. And this one is great. I love this one. Speaking of cozy fantasies, I then read The House on the Cerulean Sea. I picked this one up last year, of course, and read it shortly after I bought it because of how much I liked Legends and Lattes. And this was also a 5-star book for me. I've heard such good things about TJ Klune, and spoiler alert again, I do have Under the Whispering Door, so we'll get into that later. But I did love this book so much. The found family in this is just so precious. Hearing about the family and all their little mannerisms and different personalities is very touching. So, and the protagonist in this one I did really like as well. So The House on the Cerulean Sea, 5-star, great cozy fantasy read. After reading some cozy fantasy, I had to go back into my thriller era. So the first book I went back to was The Last Word. This is the same author that wrote No Exit. I haven't read No Exit yet. I know I have to, but this one was really interesting. It was kind of not serious at all. The things that happen in this book are kind of ridiculous, but in the best way possible. The ending is just wild. So if you want to go down a wild ride, definitely recommend The Last Word. I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. It's basically about a girl that moves into this home for like the summer or something to like house sit, and her neighbor tells her to read a book. She ends up not liking the book and giving it a 1-star review, a pretty nasty 1-star review. And then suddenly she feels like she's being stalked, and you're wondering if it's the author coming to get her for her 1-star review. Anyways, it was really fun and crazy, and I think I ended up giving this one a 4 or 4.5. I think I gave it a 4. It was good. It was really good. The next one was also a thriller, so I stayed with my thrillers during this time. And this was actually quite a disappointment because I had really high hopes for this book. I thought I was going to give it like a 4.5 or 5-star, but I did not. And that is Local Woman Missing. This one I ended up giving 3.5 stars, and it's mostly for the ending. I didn't love the ending. I didn't love where the story went. And I actually wrote a review for this one as well. I said, didn't love how this one ended with so many things left unanswered and brushed over. Entertaining plot twist, I suppose, but made the first 75% of the book feel pointless. I don't love when books do that. when the ending doesn't really feel like it makes sense, or you're just left with so many questions. I don't love that feeling, but a lot of people do actually really enjoy this novel. So if you want to read some positive reviews and then make a judgment call on whether you want to pick it up or not, I think it's worth the read just to see what it's about. But I didn't love this one so much for some reason. Wasn't my fave. The next book I read is fun because it's outside of any of the genres that I mentioned in my TBR video, and it was the first time I read a book from this genre. It is Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola, and this one was a really fun romance. It took me a long time to get through it. I think mostly because I just don't read romance, so it was something new for me. But I did really like their chemistry. I thought the story was fun, and she hosts a radio show for the school and he makes like film projects and they work together. It's kind of enemies to lovers. I don't know how much of like enemies really, because I don't think they were like horrible enemies, but they don't really like each other in the beginning. And then, of course, they fake date. That's another trope in this book that I really liked. But I quite enjoyed this as like my first romance I've read pretty much like ever, or like in recent years at least. It was a great first book to pick up. I want to read 7 Days in June. There's other romance books on my TBR, not physical TBR, but books that I do want to pick up. But this one was just really fun. I liked where it took place. It took place at a university, and it was just fun to follow along. It kind of felt like slice of life, but still had an interesting plot. And yeah, I quite enjoyed this one. It just took me a while to get through because I'm not used to the genre, but I did like it. Okay, and those are all the books I read that I didn't mention in my physical TBR for last year. So those were all the 15 books I read. So I thought we should go through some quick stats for the year. So what is the genre breakdown? Tied for first are thriller and mystery at 4 books each. Next is manga with 3. I read those the 3 first volumes of Spy Family. The next genre is fantasy at 2, and it's funny because the 2 fantasy books that I picked up weren't the one fantasy that I mentioned in that video. So I picked them up and then decided to read them right away because I thought they sounded intriguing, and I gave both of those 5-star. So I don't know if it's the whole fantasy genre or maybe just cozy fantasy, but I did really like those 2 books. Next is romance at 1. I read Honey and Spice, and the last genre is horror. I read 1 horror novel, which was Daphne. This year, I'm going to keep better track of this because Goodreads doesn't do a great job of this, but according to Goodreads, I read 4,720 pages last year. This is not very accurate though, because the page count on Goodreads takes into account acknowledgements and other miscellaneous pages that could be in a novel. So this year, I'm keeping better track of this through Notion, which I'm going to go into later in this video. So yes, I did read 15 books last year. That's not a lot. It's better than 1 a month, which I think was like my baseline goal. Of course, I want to reach the 23 books that were in that physical TBR, so not great. Clearly, my setup is not the same from 1 year ago, and that is because I moved into a new apartment with my boyfriend. Yes, so there was a lot that happened last year that kind of kept me away from reading as much as I wanted to, but also I was just going through some reading slumps and not being sure what to pick up. 15, not horrible, but not great either. This next stat I wouldn't pay too close attention to. It's the average length of book that I read last year, just because, as we said, Goodreads doesn't really keep good track of this. But according to Goodreads, it was 314 pages, mostly because of the 3 volumes of Spy Family. That would bring the page number down. But then other books, the page number is too high on Goodreads. So I don't know, it's not a great statistic to look at, but I thought I would mention it anyway. The next 2 are also Goodreads stats. So the most shelved book was Inheritance Games, the first book in the series, of course. And then the least shelved book was Daphne, which I guess I was kind of surprised by, but also not really, because it was a new release in 2023, I believe. So probably just not enough people got around to it in that year. But yeah, so that was my least shelved book. Time for the ratings breakdown. So none of my books I rated lower than a 3.5. None of them were 3s, which is quite surprising. But my average rating was 4.3. And you'll see why when we go through the breakdown. So 3.5, I gave 3 books this rating. 4 stars, I gave 5 books that rating. 4.5 stars, I gave 1 book that reading, and then 5 stars, I gave 6 books that rating. However, out of the 6 books that I rated 5 stars, 3 of them came from Spy Family. So there were 3 novels that I rated 5 stars, which I think is quite great still. So I think those 3 books were The House in the Cerulean Sea, Legends and Lattes, and I believe the first Inheritance Games. I think those are the 3. And also, I thought I would mention this. Most people, when they talk about their stats, their reading stats, they talk about what format they read it in. So was it audiobook? Was it physical? Was it both together? Was it an e-reader? So for me, I don't have an e-reader and I wasn't signed up to any audiobook service. So all the books I read last year were all read physically, but that might change in 2024, which we'll get into right now. So let's get into this year's reading goals and TBR, starting with the goals. Last year I had a goal of 23 books that I wanted to read in the year 2023, and similarly, I want to read 24 this year. I feel like, it shouldn't have been hard to do this last year with this mindset, but a nice 24 tells me I need to read 2 books every month. It's pretty easy to keep track of. Just make sure you read the 2 books and you're good. And how I plan to actually achieve this better. First of all, I do have 24 books owned physically. So I do have my physical TBR. I shouldn't need to buy any other books and I should just finish all the books on my physical TBR and I will reach this goal. However, if I do struggle through reading a book physically, I did sign up for Audible. The way that I'm going to use Audible is I would love to use it primarily when I'm working out, specifically just on the treadmill doing 12, 3, 30. I feel like that would be the best way. I'm working my mind and I'm working out physically. Another reason why I wanted to get Audible is if I'm struggling to make it through a physical read, it's just something I'm having difficulty reading, or it's just long and I'm not really quick with it. Having the option to have the audiobook will be really helpful to read them in tandem. So to have the book physically in front of me, but also listening to it and just, I feel like it would be easier that way. So yes, the first goal was to read 24 books this year, so 24 books for 2024, and also using Audible. Another thing, it's not really like a goal necessarily because I do already have a lot of books, but if I'm looking for more books for whatever reason, if this is like a high reading year for me, I would love to make use of my library. I don't remember the last time I took out a book from the library, probably in like college or university, but those were like academic books, not actually like fiction and things I'm into. This might be a next year, like a 2025 goal of mine is to read books from the library more, but I thought I would make note of it here. And then the last goal goes without saying, it kind of goes with my first goal, but I would love to read all the books on my physical TBR. I really want to be strict on this. The only thing is like if I get gifted books for like Christmas, my birthday, things like that, okay. But I really don't see a need to go out and buy more books. They can wait. I have books that I own physically, so why do I need to go out and buy more? I love going book shopping. It's like it's its own hobby in itself, going to see what Indigo has and just being excited by new releases, but I do not need to go and buy them. They're still going to be there next year, you know what I mean? So I'm going to try my very best to read everything that's on my physical TBR, or just not go out and buy so many books when I already have so many. So we'll see. We'll see if I stick to that by the end of this year. Okay, so now probably the most fun section of this video is going through my 2024 physical TBR. First, let's go over the books that I should have read last year. I'm not going to go into detail at all about them. I'm just going to lift them up. So these are all the books that are still on my physical TBR. These are the books that were not in that video from last year, but that I picked out throughout the year. The first one is Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. I actually made mention to wanting to read more Agatha Christie in last year's video. So this is the first book that I picked up from her. Then I picked up the next volumes in Spy Family, so Spy Family Volume 4, 5, and 6. And actually seeing her on the cover makes me think that I'm like at the same pace as the anime because she made her appearance in the anime in the latest episode that I watched. So if I could catch up on the manga and be in time with the anime, I feel like that'd be really cool. The next book is another TJ Klune. I showed you guys this. So yes, I got Under the Whispering Door. Very excited to read this. Also showed you this, Bookshops and Bone Dust. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes, and I've been enjoying it. I am about 50% of the way through, and I really, really love this series. I hope Travis Baldree continues in this series. Since I've been enjoying the fantasy that I've been reading, although it has just been cozy fantasy, I wanted to get into it. So I have A Core of Thorns and Roses. I only have the first two books in the ACOTAR series, but you know what? I've heard such good things about the second book, so I figured I'll get the first and second, and if I do love the series, I'll continue in it. And my cousin got me these books, so thank you to my cousin, and I'm really excited to finally read ACOTAR. This next book, I don't really know what to expect because people either really like it or don't really like it, but that is Paul Tremblay's The Pallbearers Club. What I find so cool about this is that there's annotations in this book. You could see wherever there's red writing are annotations that I guess our protagonist has written. So I feel like it's just cool. It's different from any other book that I've read, and the synopsis seems very interesting. So that is The Pallbearers Club. This next one, I just want to hop on the bandwagon, I guess, because all the booktubers that I watch enjoy this book. However, for some reason on Goodreads, it doesn't have a great rating. And I wonder if that's just because not a lot of people have rated the book yet. All the booktubers that I know and love this book. Like, some of them have made it to their favorite books of 2023. And that is Julia Bart's The Writing Retreat. And this is a debut novel. So for a debut novel to get such high praise from all these YouTubers, these booktubers that I watch, it's pretty cool. And I love the synopsis of this one. I feel like it's going to be a wild ride, and I am really excited to read this. Hopefully this winter, because of the wintry setting, I feel like it'd be perfect for that. And then the last book that I have on my physical TBR actually stems from a series that I was reading last year, and that is The Brothers Hawthorne. So this is from Jennifer Lynn Barnes, of course, and this is actually like a spin-off book from the Inheritance Games series. So the Hawthorne brothers, in this one, it follows just Jameson and Grayson. There are two other brothers, which I don't know if, I think their names are Nash and Sander, but this book just follows Grayson and Jameson, which if you read the Inheritance Games, you know these were the two love interests. It's just going to be interesting to see what they get up to and learn more about them. Okay, so the very last thing that I want to do is do a little Notion tour. I use Notion for a lot of aspects in my life, particularly goal setting, but also tracking my reading. So I did this last year as well, but I thought I would show you a little tour of my 2024 Notion setup for my reading. This is the bookshelf. And you could see how many books I've read. So currently I've read one for the year, and that was Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. You could see here, if you go to the calendar view, you could see I actually read it in the last days of 2023, but I counted it towards my 2024 reading just because I wanted to get a head start. And I know it's cheating, but hear me out. It was the last 3 days of the year, and I ended up giving that book 4.5 stars. It was really, really good. But anyways, this is where you would see my reading. So whenever I mark a book done, it'll show you when I started it, when I ended it, the rating I gave it, the genre it falls under, and how many pages it was. And then also when you click into it, the sidebar will pop up here. And you'll see all of the properties for the book that I filled out manually. The progress bar is actually automatic, so it just depends on like the current page number you are versus how many pages are in the book. So current page 291, pages in the book 291. So the progress is 100%. And then I also decided to write my reviews in here. So these are the same reviews as what you'll see on my Goodreads, but I thought it would be cool to have it in my Notion as well. When you click into my bookshelf database, my reading archive is just my reading from previous years. It's the same thing, but you could see there from 2022 and 2023. So this first table here is my TBR. So the things that I look at are the title, author, and the author links to the Goodreads page of the author, the genre, the average rating on Goodreads, the number of pages, the season and month that I plan to read it in. The checkbox is whether I've bought the book or not, and if I have, what's the date that I bought it on. And then the cover of the book. And then I have different views here. I have it broken out into genre. I like that it's visual and you can see everything. So this is my whole TBR that I just brought you guys through. Then it's broken out by season. So which books I want to read in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. And then it's further broken down into month. So month that I plan to read each of these. And you can see that there's nothing in January because I read one of the books, so it's not on my TBR anymore, and the other book is not on my TBR because I'm currently reading it. So if you go down, you could see which books I've read or I'm currently reading. Similar to what was tracked in the first one, but there's a bit more. And what's nice is that you could take any book from my TBR, click on these dots here and click move to, and you can move it to currently reading or read, and then it'll move the book into this read table. So similar things, you'll still have the title, the author, the genre, but then you have my rating versus the average rating on Goodreads, current page number versus the pages, the number of pages. So right now I'm 57% of the way through Bookshops and Bone Dust. It marks my start date, and then once I put an end date, it tells me how many days it took me to actually read the book. So this will be nice because I'll see the average here, the average number of days it took me to read a book, which I think will be really cool to track. I also have the sum of the number of pages, and this is more accurate than Goodreads because I actually look in the book and see how many pages there actually are to read. So yeah, that's basically how I have it set up. And I like seeing all the different genres too. It's just nice to see them reading different types of books. And something like Notion just keeps me motivated. It's just fun to keep track of all these things. I built up this template from scratch. I don't know how to share it, but if you have any questions for how to set something like this up, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to help. So that is the end of this really long reading recap and goals and TBR for 2024. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It's been so long since I filmed a video, and this is another thing that keeps me motivated to stay on top of reading because I do really enjoy reading, but having external factors to motivate you to continue on is really helpful. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one soon. But the last time I said that, it took a year, so no expectations, but I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope to see you soon. Bye guys!